Now, I know the first episode of Fallout Season 2 has been and gone, and if I'm being honest, somehow that show just fell out of my calendar. I don't know how, I don't know why, but it did. So I'm sorry for missing the premiere. But last night I gave it a watch when I had a bit of free time, and rather than doing an ending explained, I wanted to try a slightly different video where I just shared what I thought of the episode. I thought there was a lot of good that was within it, and scenes that I felt made the show seem worth the wait, specifically the flashback scenes with Cooper Howard and also with Ghoul and Lucy walking through the desert. However, at the same time, there were also some moments where I feel there were signs that the amount of split storylines could become a bit of a hindrance to the show, but I'll get into it during the video. So let's jump right in. Here is a review of Fallout Season 2 Episode 1. It goes without saying that this video is going to contain spoilers, so if like me, you missed the first episode's release date, then pause the video, give it a watch, and then come on right back. Ghoul and Lucy. Ghoul and Lucy was probably my favourite part of the entire episode. I know it was supposed to be this, but I feel it really embodied that traditional Western type of feel that you don't often get on TV and in movies that much anymore. So it encapsulated that hostile nature perfectly. Walton Goggins in the role of Ghoul is just quite literally the most suited casting possible, and the harsh cutthroat nature that he has makes the perfect contrast for the soft Lucy that doesn't want to hurt a fly, and we saw that she didn't. This was obviously seen most with the shootout that took place when she was aiming for non-deadly positions on the body, but then Ghoul was just finishing them off. What I really liked seeing in this episode, which was shown to us throughout the use of flashbacks, was how different Ghoul actually is to Cooper. We saw that Cooper knew about the bomb being dropped, his wife's involvement, and that Robert House was the sole person that was pretty much leading the decision making on it, and Cooper just sat there and pretended like he didn't know what was going on. The shot where his wife returned home and him taking a drink and the both of them then separately looking at the wall and taking a breath, gaining composure and becoming ready to lie to each other showed how complicit they both were. I feel that's why when we see Ghoul, his direction and approach of being blunt, harsh, and not having any remorse for his actions is almost because he learned from his mistakes of not saying anything when he most probably should have done before the bombs were dropped. So he's now learned from his mistakes. The mistakes that led to his family being gone, and those 200 years on his own have now changed him drastically. He's a broken man that simply just wants to find his family, and he's holding on to hope, which I felt was a core theme of this first episode. It kind of reminded me of the movie Train Dreams and the way that the main character in that film, despite knowing that his family most likely perished in a fire, he held on to the hope that they'd one day come back to him, and this is kind of like what Ghoul is doing with the idea of being reunited with his daughter. There's a strong chance that she won't be alive, it's been 200 years, but it's the hope of her being out there which is the entire reason that keeps him going. What I loved about the flashback scenes from around 2077 is just the overall look and feel of the environment. It's got that late 60s feel to it in the aesthetic, but that real sense of modernity with the technology, but also a sense of community in the neighborhoods that it feels like you got back then. Honestly, I feel I could almost just sit here and watch an entire prequel series based on Cooper and him having that conflict in his mind over what it is he should do. I really like the balance between him and Lucy too. I think there's probably going to come a time where even though he doesn't seem like he has a sense of care for her and he'd happily progress on without her, he'll end up saving her or she'll do that to him, and we'll see that even though Ghoul is looking for his family, he'll get that sense of care and family on his adventure with Lucy. He's different from Cooper, obviously, in both mind and appearance, but I still think that version of Cooper is buried deep within him and it'll show itself with the more tender moments in the show. Whilst it feels like Ghoul might get a touch softer as the episodes go on, I think that also means we'll see Lucy toughening up. Right now she refuses to kill, but what this journey is going to show her is that outside of the vault it's either kill or be killed, and I reckon she's going to learn the hard way. She wasn't prepared to do it in the season premiere, but by the end of the season I think she will have done. One thing that I also really like are the parallels that we're seeing. With Cooper, we saw that he was looking out for his daughter and they had a dog with them, and in the present day with Ghoul, we're seeing him going along with another young girl and there's a dog with them too. It just feels quite poetic, it's beautiful to look at, and in my mind it just adds to the subconscious pain that Ghoul is probably feeling. This is a duo that I didn't realise how much I'd enjoy seeing together until I watched this first episode, and with Walton Goggins smashing his delivery and feeling that weight of regret and emptiness, and Ella Purnell providing a softer edge to the duo, it's something that I just can't wait to see more of. The story in the vault. Now, if I'm being honest, this was probably the part of the episode that I kept switching off for. Norm's element was interesting, and seeing him resisting going into the cryosleep chamber did have me on the edge of my seat. It showed just how much fight that he had within him and the purpose that he wanted to have in the world, especially seeing him thawing everybody in the end. But when we were inside Vault 32 and 33, I wasn't really that engaged. But I think that's most probably because this element of the story is going to be a bit more of a slow burn, and maybe with time it'll be better. Reggie's story does seem quite interesting. His lack of purpose and wanting to be involved, but not really contributing anything to the Vault, but it looking like he could drive up a sense of community is something that I'm excited to see unfold. The dynamic between Chet and Steph was also quite interesting, but outside of that, I just didn't feel that engaged with it, especially when departing from Ghoul and Lucy. It was an episode that just had most of the action happening in the opening scene and also with Ghoul and Lucy and the flashbacks, but I suspect that will change. We've still got many other arcs to feature in this season of the show, ones that I know will contain action and be engaging. I just hope it doesn't come at the cost of compromising others. In a show that releases all of its episodes at once, it almost doesn't matter as much because you consume multiple episodes in one go, but by watching one episode and then having to wait at least a week, if stories stop getting a key focus, it can prove to be an issue if the balancing is slightly off. So I am intrigued to see how the show's going to handle that. The visuals. One thing that I thought was absolutely stunning in this episode were the visuals that were on screen. Like I mentioned about the flashback scenes earlier on, it encapsulated that 1960s vibe quite well, and there was a real gloss to the way that it looked, which, even though it looked like it was set in the past, it was a reminder that this was actually taking place in the future. Then, what I will say is when it would cut to the present day and Ghoul and Lucy would be walking the deserts of Nevada, you could really feel the heat that was present there and the vast open landscape that they were walking through. It was dry, hostile terrain, and there was no forgiveness. The brutality in some of the images that we got of either the petrified dead or the gory subjects that had been walked over was absolutely gruesome. There's no holding back in this show, and we saw several head poppings occur. The fact that the head pop was one of the first things that we saw in the entirety of the season, it showed the importance of the device, the control that it could have over its subjects, which is going to play an important part of the story in this season, and also the fact it was going to be one hell of a bloody ride. A shot that I absolutely loved in this episode was when the sirens were going off in the neighborhood. Cooper looked up at the billboard that he was being used for Vault Tech, which he now hated, and it said, "Keep your loved ones safe." The look that he gave it showed that he was deep in thought because he really didn't know what to do in order to keep his family safe. Barb, a member of his family, was quite literally somebody that he needed to keep his daughter safe from. It was just a great shot where you could see the thought that was going on inside of his mind and that he was in a situation where he was lost. Other standout moments in the episode. A couple of other things that I thought really stood out in this episode was the choice of songs that underpinned many of the scenes. Songs such as Cheek to Cheek by Peggy Lee and also Make the World Go Away by Eddie Arnold suited their scenes so well and encapsulated the tone, feel and intensity of what was going on. I feel like because most of the songs in the first episode were from the late 1940s and spanned into the mid-1960s, it encapsulated that time and feel and complemented the visuals really well, so they worked in harmony together. Now, I think it's clear to see that this show is going to be one that leads the way over the next 8 weeks, and we're all going to be flocking to Amazon Prime on a Wednesday to check the latest episode. I do find it quite interesting that they decided to go with a weekly release instead of dropping it all at once this time round, but I much prefer this approach. It allows time to theorize, to truly feel immersed within the show, and with a story that establishes a world that you genuinely want to feel a part of and feel transported to, this new approach allows for that to be the optimum experience. So, there you have it, just a little bit of a discussion on Fallout Season 2 Episode 1. I didn't get round to covering the first episode on the day of release, but I'll be back on Christmas Eve with Episode 2 where there'll be a normal type of video where I break down the ending. If you want to see more of your favourite TV series and movies being broken down, then check the playlist below, and don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss future videos. What did you think of the first episode? Share your thoughts in the comments. As always, thanks for tuning into the video and I'll see you in the next one.